Back across to Zagua.
Wow! Good! Carroll! He couldn't control it. Forte!
He made it!
Gives Oklahoma State the lead!
Put pressure on the officials to make a call.
Evans again! And one!
And it's stripped away. Solomon goes to the deck. Goes with him. Shot! And the stop!
Welcome to a special edition of the Rowdy Report. I'm Chase Risman, joined by Jacob Sturm, and we're here to discuss Oklahoma State hiring Steve Lutz as the new head coach of Oklahoma State men's basketball. Jacob, how are you? And your first thoughts on the Pokes hiring Steve Lutz as their new head coach?
I'm doing good. This has been a wild few weeks of OSU basketball content. You know, you're not ever expecting it whenever in the middle of the NCAA tournament's going on, but
Right.
you know, it's nice to see that they've moved and got their guy. You know, I mean, I think that's one of the things that for a moment there they kind of waited a little bit, and that kind of got me a little bit concerned because the portal's going to move so fast, and you know they're going to be hunting people down kind of late in the process if they didn't get a move on. So, but you know, as far as Steve Lutz goes, I have watched a little bit of tape for what Western Kentucky was running, and boy, it's going to be a different brand of basketball than what we've been experiencing at in Stillwater for quite some time. So I'm excited. I think it'll be a fun change.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we say this, and I say this, you know, completely honest. It's nothing against Mike Boynton, who, you know, he gave me some of my favorite memories as an Oklahoma State men's basketball fan. Nevertheless, after this just unbelievably disastrous season, they really didn't have a choice but to part ways with him. And for a coaching search that, you know, looked like it was going south, I mean, they didn't officially make an announcement until 18 days later. And my fear was OSU was either going to hire an in-house assistant that had never coached before, or they were going to be truly desperate and give the job to Doug Gottlieb. Nevertheless, they hired a proven head coach who led Western Kentucky to the NCAA tournament, and also had success with Texas A&M Corpus Christi. And now he has become the 21st head coach of Oklahoma State men's basketball. He replaces Mike Boynton, who went 119 and 109 in 7 seasons in Stillwater. He's also now an assistant for Michigan. And considering his resume, I think they made a pretty good hire.
Yeah, you know, I mean, just if you're gonna let's look at it from a non-on-court perspective. In terms of recruiting, Mike Boynton did a great job. Like, I don't think anybody could dispute that he's a great recruiter and he's a very personable guy, and he connects with the players. And you know that in today's day and age is a really good trait to have. And so I have no doubt him going to Michigan, that's going to be a good place for him, and he's going to have the backing of a lot of people, I'm sure. And boy, just get to know him for a very short period of time, and I mean, everybody would be on board. You know, he's a great guy, and you can't really take anything away from him there. But of course, I do think, and I know you mentioned that it was just this year that was kind of disastrous, but I think from an OSU basketball perspective, they didn't really live up to the expectations more than maybe once, maybe twice in his tenure at OSU. And so I feel like, I mean, not to be overly critical or anything,
Right.
but I mean, I think the expectation for a program like OSU is a little bit higher than what the results would indicate that he performed at. And so, I mean, I think it was a mutual parting, you know, just maybe a fresh start would have been a good thing for both parties. And so I wish him nothing but the best. I think he's a great guy, and I mean I have no quarrel with him, nothing like that. But I do think that if you're just looking from a basketball perspective, it maybe was the right time to move on and try something else out. And so that's why I'm very optimistic with what OSU has done in the past few weeks. So
Yeah, absolutely. And Yeah, he did underachieve, but in fairness, most of that wasn't really his fault. This past season is a different story. That is totally on him. But other than that, yeah, it was just a case of him just having bad luck, whether it was Isaac Likely randomly getting sick or the NCAA not knowing what they were doing with the appeal process or Avery Anderson getting hurt. Nevertheless, yeah, it was time to move on after this past season. And they went out and got a fantastic head coach. Steve Lutz, he was the head coach this season of Western Kentucky, led them to the NCAA tournament. He also had some good seasons with Texas A&M Corpus Christi. The thing I'm really excited about is his ability to recruit in the transfer portal. Is it Zach Edey, the big man from Purdue, who might get Player of the Year? I think, if I'm not mistaken,
Hmm.
Lutz recruited him from through the portal to Western Kentucky. So that's what I'm really excited about, to see who he can bring in from the transfer portal.
Well, I was under the impression he was at Purdue as an assistant and recruited Zach Edey to Purdue, and so he's been at Purdue his entire career, and
Oh,
that
he's
that
actually
was kind of what I thought that was.
he's actually been at Purdue longer than that. Oh wow.
No, no, no. So I thought Zach Edey has been there multiple years at
Right, he
least. I
was an
mean,
assistant. I didn't know Zach Edey was at Purdue for as long as he's been, if he has.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah. I think he has because I want to say that Edie's a senior. It
right.
would have been a few multiple years back because I guess it would have had to have been if Lutz was coaching multiple years at Corpus Christi. Um, unless maybe I'm my timeline's a little bit off, but I mean who knows? But I will say one thing, and moving to Lutz a little bit, one thing that I'm really excited for is just the pace of play. I know it's been a thing that a lot of people have kind of referenced since the hire was made officially, but I mean, golly, they play fast, and you're going to see a lot of possessions in basketball games, and I think that's going to draw more people's interest, especially in today's day and age where I mean, the NBA is growing in popularity, and a free flowing style of basketball is just visually pleasing to watch.
Nobody
And
cares about
college
defense
basketball is kind of
anymore.
going the opposite way. You
Right.
know, I think that's maybe the thing that excites me the most is that it's going to be a lot easier to watch basketball games that are entertaining and not like like gnashing your teeth to like because you're just so uh uptight because nobody can score and we're just walking it up and it's really slow and just a slugfest. You're going to get a lot more fun basketball. So that's the main thing to take away.
Yeah, totally. And especially in the Big 12, which is set to add um, Arizona next season. The Wildcats, you know, what a team they were this season with Caleb Love. And they'll be adding, the conference will be adding them, Colorado. And, it's a good time to get Steve Lutz in because he's about to face the toughest conference in men's college basketball. And what a time to do it, as they are getting ready to add teams like Arizona and Utah to the conference. I mean, this is part of the reason I'm excited for it, is that he's proven he can coach. And look, whether or not he leads OSU to the tournament in year one, if that happens, great. If not, we'll see. But he's got a chance now to prove himself against guys like Bill Self, against Jerome Tang, Tommy Floyd, you name it. And this is what it's all about, coaching in the Big 12.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think the other part of it, I mean, you're kind of like you're playing like house free in a way because if you were to like revitalize OSU to become like a very competent, good basketball program that's making the tournament on a consistent basis, I mean, your approval rating is going to go sky high. And even if that career, maybe he doesn't want to be at a kind of like middling program, well, like the best way to get another step up on that ladder is to come to a program that is just kind of in shambles and needs to be revitalized, and to quickly revitalize them and make them like a competent basketball team. That's going to move the needle for somebody. And so I think he's kind of playing with house money, in my opinion. I mean, I would personally, I would love it if his long term goal is to stay at OSU, if it works out, of course. But I mean, even if that's not the goal, this is a good step, like a career moving step, And so I think for him, it's a great opportunity. It's a good addition all around.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't say there's any immediate pressure on him to win at Oklahoma State, but to win with the Pokes, but I'd have to imagine it's a high priority because this past season, forget the fact that the team wasn't any good. Home games, aside from Bedlam, were just, and maybe the Kansas game, although I think most of that was just Jayhawks fans. Home games this season, especially starting with Big 12 play, were depressing because for the first time that I can recall, they actually dimmed the lights in the upper deck at GIA. And, you know, even with the lower bowl, the place still gets about five, maybe 6,000 a game, which in the old GIA is pretty good. But in the modern arena with the upper deck, for a program like that to have to dim the lights at home games isn't a good look. And hopefully Steve Lutz can get the program back to winning to the point that, if they can't fill all 13,611 seats, they can at least get it to where the building is loud and teams fear Gallagher-Iba Arena again.
Yeah, and I do think another factor that this hire kind of addresses in a way is like the Thunder are like going to attract probably the most viewers of any of the teams in Oklahoma in terms of basketball, and you're directly competing with them on a lot of nights. And I mean, it's not like the Thunder are having a bad year or are going to be middle of the road, not very good for years to come. You're going to have to compete with like really good basketball. So if you're offering what we'd seen the past 4 or 5 years of kind of like a tense, slow, like low scoring grind, I mean, that's not going to appeal to, at least in my opinion, to the people like that are just now in college, or the people in that ballpark in terms of like age, because I mean, you're so accustomed to seeing high level 120, 118 type NBA basketball games around here. So in a
Right.
way, it's like you need to find a way to draw interest. And I think the best way to do that is to make the game more fast paced, give yourself more opportunities to score, run the score up, finish games in the 80s, in the 90s
Right.
every single night. I mean, that alone is going to draw more people. So I think it's kind of in this context, I think OSU did something that markets their product better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the last 18 years of mediocre basketball haven't helped, but now you've got the Thunder, who have become one of the more consistently successful teams in the NBA, so that doesn't help either. And hopefully they can, get the product back to where it's winning and get the arena filled up again. Um, I mentioned earlier he's great recruiting in the transfer portal. He's got some work to do because Oklahoma State has lost Brandon Garrison. I think they lost Quinn Williams, and they may have lost Javon Small. He said that hasn't been confirmed yet. Am I wrong? Has he transferred now?
I haven't heard anything official on it. I think from what I heard last is probably what you've heard last about how it was kind of like hinted at, but then he kind of like came out and said it's not official or anything, and that makes me wonder, is it gonna eventually be official? And I'm a little bit up in the air since then. So
Right.
yeah.
I mean, regardless if he comes back or not, it's going to be a very different roster And, I would imagine he's already hard at work to find players in the transfer portal. Do you think he can find, maybe not, some elite scorer, but guys that can score in double figures that can potentially get OSU semi-competitive or at least respectable in the Big 12 next season? I mean, who would be the target figures in that situation?
Oh, that's a good question. I would argue the players that would be the most fitting for a team like this, the style that they're going to run would be more guards, more lengthy athletic forwards that can run the floor and are not going to slow a game down. Like you're not going to have 2 7-footers that need to be in the post playing the system. Like you just don't, because you're going to be running so much, So I do think in a way like Keon Williams would be a fantastic guy to get back. If they could find a way to get him back on the roster, I think he would actually work really well with the idea, like the identity they're going to try to make. But who knows if that's a reality? I would aim for people kind of like Keon Williams. Maybe if you could add a little bit of shooting to that, like be able to space the floor and move like really quick. I think those would be the two things I would target: shooters and athletic guys that are not gonna like burn out of energy.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And we'll see what happens there. Obviously, as I said earlier, there's no pressure on him to immediately start winning. But what do you think the time frame is to where they have to, if nothing else, become respectable and start making the NCAA tournament consistently? Because this is a program that has high standards, and for the past 18 years, it's been up and down, and really, it's really unacceptable given the standards of the program. So, what kind of time frame do you think there is, if any, for him to start winning, or if nothing else, get them respectable into the NCAA tournament?
this is the this is the tough part in my opinion, because it's not like it's a sure thing. Oh, just finish top 8 and you're going to
Right.
be in. Like it's no sure thing that you can even finish top 8. Like that's how deep the Big 12 is. So in a way, I mean, I feel like ninth or 10th is like a respectable year one,
Right.
like finishing like ninth or 10th. But I mean, of course, that comes down with whoever is on the roster. If they don't have enough talent on the roster, then you just simply are not going to be able to do it. But do we know, did he sign a 4-year deal? Because I would say if the initial 4 years isn't enough time, then I would think that would be a concerning point to me. If it was like a 5-year deal or a 6-year deal, I would say by like year 4, I want to see some actual results. Not, I mean, and I might be undershooting it. There's a good chunk of people that would want them to be in the tournament next year, but I'm not saying that's a reality, because I mean, who knows? We can't know until we have an idea what the roster is going to be. But even year 2, I mean, I think there would be a little like minimized amount of pressure. Like, I think that at some point you're going to have to see legitimate results. And I mean, given year 2 for him in the program is kind of quick, especially in a conference like the Big 12. But I mean, I've come to expect, I've seen he's been a head coach 3 years and he's made 3 tournaments. So like if year 2 they're still not having success getting to the tournament, I would start thinking about putting a little more pressure on him, making it more important to get there. So
Yeah,
it's a matter of perspective. And I mean, I guess we won't really know what that is until next season starts in reality. So I'm curious what that will even be like, what the preseason expectations will be for a lot of Cowboy fans.
right. I'm trying to find out what his contract was. I haven't been able to find it yet, but yeah, I would imagine if nothing else, he's got to at least get the program back to respectability. Whether or not he leads them back to the Final Four, come on, If that happens, great, but we're not going to judge it. It shouldn't be judged like right away. That shouldn't be expected immediately. But yeah, I think, if nothing else, they've got to be respectable and they've got to get back to being, competitive on a consistent basis. I mean, again, past season with the talent they had, finishing in second to last place in the Big 12 was just like there's just no excuse for that. If not for a Javon Small 3-pointer, we're looking at a last place finish with a top 10 recruiting class. So, I mean, really, at the end of the day, this is about baby steps first. Just get to respectability, and let's see what happens from there.
Yeah, and I'm less frustrated with the like direct results, like finishing where they did. I'm more frustrated by how some of those things happened, like getting blown out on a lot of your road trips is where it kind of got to me like this isn't working. They need to figure something out because
Right,
I
that
mean
too.
losing by double digit is never good,
Right.
never good.
Yeah,
You
that
know,
too. I mean, they couldn't get down for a home game against Kansas. They got run off the floor in Lubbock and Ames, although the latter, everybody probably did that this year. But
Mhm.
still, I mean, they couldn't get down for senior night against Tech. I'm with you. Like, it was frustrating enough that they finished in second to last place in the Big 12, but to start conference play the way they did, showing virtually no effort in some of those games, it was embarrassing. That was what I knew. If things don't work out this season, they've got to make a change. So hopefully he can turn things around and hopefully he can get them to where they're competitive. Um, what should we expect out of him? Should we expect, do you think he'll lead the Pokes back to national relevance? Or do you think, I mean, what do you think? I mean, I think he has the potential to be a good coach for the Pokes.
Well, I think the best place to start with this, what do we consider nationally relevant?
Right.
What is nationally relevant for OSU basketball at this point? Because I mean, I guess you could make an argument just making the tournament would be nationally relevant because then everybody has to either pick you or pick against you in a tournament format, you know? And I mean, a lot of people fill out their brackets and you would be kind of relevant that way. But is that all that we're talking about? Or are we talking like Sweet 16? Like, for instance, the last time they made the Sweet 16, I don't even remember. Like, it's been a
Right.
long time. So, I mean, yeah, I guess it kind of depends. If we're looking at it from like Sweet 16, I mean, I don't know if I can get there because there's so much ground they have to make up if they're going to do that. Like
Right.
it, and then you're not going to be getting an easy path. You're going to have to go through legitimate competition just to make the tournament. So I personally I'm a little skeptical that they'll get to like a Sweet 16. I mean, I'm kind of in a show me, like prove it to me by showing it to me. That's kind of where I'm sitting on that. But could they make the tournament? I mean, if that's what the question is, then sure. I mean, I think that's definitely something. You don't make a hire like this if you're not attempting to make the tournament. So
Right. Yeah, they don't, he doesn't have to like make the Final Four every year. That'd be great, but I mean, it doesn't have to happen. That said, yes, like consistently making the tournament, every now and then winning the Big 12, and every now and then making it to the Final Four. I mean, I was in first grade the last time Oklahoma State made the Sweet 16. I think I was living in Illinois the last time they made the Final Four and the Elite Eight. So just getting them back to respectability on a consistent level is really, I think, what I mean by nationally relevant.
mm, yeah, I mean, I think you can't say no this early. Like if you said no this early, that would be a pretty bad sign. But I do think that there's definite potential, but there's also definite question marks. Like I just want to see it in a Big 12 format. Like when you're playing against the best of the best, is your strategy going to continue to pay off? Like
Yeah.
if you're playing in a smaller conference that only gets one bid to the tournament and you just win your tournament games, you're in, So like in a way, I think I mean I have optimism because they've done it and he's proven he can do it all 3 years that he's been a head coach. But I also sit there and go, the Big 12 is going to have like 8 or 9 teams that are going to be legitimate tournament teams.
Right.
And they're not like the just finding a way to get in, like scraping in the first 4. They're going to be like Houston, Iowa State, Kansas, Arizona. Well, there's 4 like 3 seeds at worst. Like you're like those teams aren't going to just go away. And then you have other teams that, I mean, I'd argue is like a team in that next tier. Tech has been pretty good, even though historically speaking, I think OSU's in the same category. But I mean, recency would definitely favor Tech. So there's a lot of programs like that I think have taken a step that OSU hasn't taken yet. So I think they'll take that next step under Lutz, but will that result in tournament runs? Unknown to me, to be decided.
Right. I think at this point, it's just get the program back to respectability, and whether or not they make deep tournament runs, we'll see. But first things first, they've got to get people back in Gallagher Iba Arena, because seeing the lights dimmed for home games wasn't right. They've just got to turn the program around. Final thoughts really quickly. The Final Four is going on this weekend. Who do you like to come out of it by next Monday or next Monday night?
I'm going to say men's and women's
All right.
because
Yeah, go ahead. We'll do it.
both are going on. I'll go with UConn for the men because frankly I don't think that any of the teams left could beat UConn. But I mean that will probably be the nail in the coffin. They'll probably go out before the championship game. But I think they're the best team of the bunch. So I mean I can't pick against UConn at this point. I had Houston in my bracket, and it was it kind of fell apart. So I personally think UConn's going to win the men's one, and the women's one I think is actually a little bit more interesting in terms of like I don't know who's going to come out of that. I mean, confidence wise, I'd probably have the most confidence that Iowa's going to win just because Caitlin Clark. But I mean, is that really? I mean, I feel like everybody in their right mind is going to pick that. So I kind of want to go against the grain a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
So, I don't know. I could totally see whoever if Iowa wins in the Final Four, then I think Iowa wins. But if they lose, I think South Carolina wins. I'll say that.
Nice. That prediction. For the women, yeah, I can't go against Caitlin Clark right now. I mean, there's just something about her, and I think she's going to lead the Hawkeyes to a national championship. As far as the men, UConn, I think, should be the favorite going in. I mean, who else? It's Alabama, Purdue. Who's the other team?
NC State.
Oh, that's right.
NC State.
That's right, because they're in both the women and men Final Four. That's right. Like,
I want them to win. Don't get me wrong. I want them to. I just don't think they got any shot.
are they playing?
I like DJ Burns. I don't think they have any chance to beat a UConn.
Are they playing UConn on Saturday, or?
I believe it's yeah, I think it's UConn NC State. I think. I can look that up real quick just to be sure. But I thought it was.
Right. I mean, honestly.
Oh no, it's UConn Bama. So.
Oh yeah. Oh wow. All right. So.
I could totally see UConn NC State for the national championship.
That would be great. Yeah, Purdue.
I can't see NC State winning.
Yeah.
So
Purdue's vulnerable. Yeah, I totally agree. UConn should be the favorite. Obviously, we all hope NC State pulls it off, but yeah, I'd have to guess UConn should be the favorite, and who knows? I mean, that's going to be fun. I mean, the Final Four is always exciting, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see what happens on Saturday. Jacob, great to see you again, and it's great to talk about Oklahoma State men's basketball. Obviously, we hope the season would have gone better, but a new era, new head coach. We'll see what happens.
Thanks for having me. I
No
appreciate it.
problem. No problem. Thank you for watching this edition of the Rowdy Report.